Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we put together a brief set of materials related to sort of topics we thought you could benefit from going forward, leaving this course. And this is going to segue into a exposure to a system that we're hoping to roll out sometime soon to support continued community building and interaction amongst this group and ability to find resources, including people for partners, etc. For further education, for people hoping, we've only touched on the smallest portion of the course. I was musing with Kurt the other day about the fact that this is very much a situation where we have to pick the 90% we can't talk about, and it's difficult. I think we've imparted some of the most important features, but there's a tremendous amount to learn. Some of you may be interested. Scott Page, who's a professor here at University of Michigan, formerly director of the Complex Systems Institute. I'm probably butchering the name. Has a model thinking course on Coursera that I've heard very favorable things. Kurt, did you partake of said course?
Not sufficient, no. Not sufficient.
Okay. Others that I know have gone through it and have spoken quite highly of it. Sorry?
I've taken 90% of it.
Okay. And you think it's a good course?
It's way more general.
It's way more general.
It's
not
like
how.
a theorizing about models kind of class.
Where?
But another thing that I just
Yep.
realized is not up there, but also Coursera, is that the Santa Fe Institute
Good.
now has an agent-based modeling 6-week course as a Coursera or CourseX or Web edX or whatever.
Yep.
And I think it's like $25 to $50 to register, and it's taught by Bill Rand, who is a very famous modeler. He helped develop NetLogo, and that's also supposed to be a very good course.
And they also have the Complexity Explorer, which is their own Coursera-like website in Santa Fe. And they have like 6 or 7 courses there.
Right.
Complexity, ABM.
Courses.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll put that
Complexity
down.
Explorer.
So Coursera course.
Well, or I don't know if it's Coursera, but there's some kind of online course on ABM.
Oh,
It's very good.
Okay.
Probably the
Through
same.
the Santa Fe.
Through the Santa Fe
Yeah.
Institute, yeah.
Complexity Explorer.org.
Website. Okay.
Over.
Okay. So that's great. I teach boot camps every year. You saw sort of a roster of them there. We for some years, and I'm trying to institutionalize this. We have variants of sort of a basic one that covers at a very gentle level sort of where models fit in, and it's very, very hands-on in terms of models of different sorts and running models. They're all health-related models, and they include agent-based, but a lot of hybrid models, and the occasional system dynamics model as well. This is aimed at health scientists and those working in health and healthcare. And it's really where models fit in, what are models, why do we use them, how do we use them to a degree. The intermediate one, of which the next one is more materials provided at the end of these slides, it's August 21st through 26th of this next month, is different. It's a boot camp and incubator. And by incubator here, I mean that some years ago we decided that the hardest part for students leaving the boot camp was twofold. Number one, they lost that sense of community they had built up in the boot camp. They couldn't talk so easily to others. Number two, when they were trying to apply the knowledge from the boot camp, they did so without the immediate guidance and hand-holding from the people at the boot camp, myself, another senior modeler, TAs like Kurt, etc. And so we decided to bring model incubation into the boot camp, where basically my students, we'd have a designated student. It's not quite a phalanx, a Krugerian phalanx, that are serving, but we have something on the order of 15 students. We parcel them up into partner with particular groups, to sort of take a model idea, take it forward to design phase, and then try putting into place a simple implementation that captures some aspects of it to get you going in a good direction, and to learn from that experience. And often we do get people coming out of this with the model that they can run, that at the very least it highlights to them things they need to think about more clearly, and often it gives them a sense of what a promising line of further development could be. Kurt will be participating in this year's as a more senior TA, like myself and another senior modeler. He will be circulating among multiple teams and providing sort of guidance, etc. This is a 6-day course because each day, about half of each day, and the final day, all of it, are devoted to incubation, to sort of building up these models. There, even more so than in this course. In this course, I've provided on the website, on the site you may have noticed, probably 1 to 2 dozen example models from health that I thought were germane to people's interests. They include health economic models, they include some geographic models, etc. But this course, we actually tap in even more extensively to my online model library, which is somewhere over, I think, 100 health models now, spanning the gamut from chronic disease to zoonoses to infectious conditions to some aspects of environmental epi to health economic, etc. Volker Grimm, whose work I do admire, he has a very different take on things. He's an ecologist, has a week-long course at Humboldt State University, which teaches NetLogo. So it's Humboldt, it's not Pomona, it's Humboldt. And he teaches with NetLogo, and it draws on a book that he has, which I'll mention here. We also wanted to talk about a variety of platforms out there. I've listed here 5 platforms that are germane for teaching the sort of model, the tools that we use in this course. Most of them have some support for multiple tools. There are some I haven't listed here, like VenSim, that are purely for SD, and NetLogo, at this point, I think they've been moving it in a hybrid direction. I don't know if that's released yet. There's some talk about SD component of it.
There's been SD components for years.
Has there? Okay, I haven't
But
worked with them.
typically among ABM people, NetLogo is kind of considered a more developmental platform, and Repast is considered more like an industrial. It can support larger models. It taps into a lot of libraries for statistical analysis, which can be useful. I personally have gotten really excellent papers published using only NetLogo modeling, so I'm a big fan of NetLogo, but Repast is also important to know about, and they're increasingly making it a bit easier for people with less programming background to explore models through sort of a pictorial interface.
Yeah, there's visual support, sort of declarative support. NetLogo, for up to, I think it's a couple tens of thousands of agents it can scale.
Right.
Is my
And
understanding. Yeah.
more recent than the Railspec and Grimm is a book by Rand and Uri Walensky, who are both the NetLogo developers, on developing ABMs with NetLogo. I think it came out in 2016. So that's another good place to start.
So there's a package comes out of Canada, actually, that is called ModGen, and it's used for very large-scale microsimulation models, particularly within the Canadian government. We've used it some. It has some strengths to recommend it. It makes extremely easy definition of certain tabular output, for example. It scales very effectively to tens of millions of agents, and it can support reasonably sophisticated models. But it's a little bit more demanding on the programming side. It uses a language called C++, or actually a variant of C++, and it's certainly less gentle than the other packages here. We teach our boot camps in AnyLogic. The reasons for that are multifold. It is basically mostly declarative model specification. You depict with state charts and with events and with mechanisms for stocks and flows, hybrid and agent-based models. You can specify declaratively, the appropriate network structures, et cetera, that you want, as well as GIS integration. It does support a large number of different health models that we've released. As I said, somewhere around 100 of them now. And the GIS integration has gotten progressively better. It does have some downsides. There's some bits of this programming language called Java required to move beyond simple models. You want to know a little bit about Java at least. And you want to have someone, just like as an epidemiologist, you want a biostatistician that you know to be on call in case you have certain biostatistical questions. You want someone who knows Java on call in case you need questions. That's also true for Repast. Repast, I'd say, is several times harder to learn the requisite Java than AnyLogic, but it's coming forward. It's making some good progress. I'm quite excited about it. We have a set of tools that build on this and that say automatically record the runs you've undertaken with the model, or output to R very easily, or do MCMC analyses with the model, etc. But it does have one thing that people don't like is that it's a graphical model depiction. The parameters are graphical, the variables are graphical, the events are graphical, the charts are graphical, the data sets, and some people find that, who are from programming background particularly, find it leads to scattered sort of code around. And I must say I'm somewhat partial to that view. Insight Maker is a tool that I quite like. It's an online tool. It's very easy to share with others. It runs in a browser. It's if you want to see it, it's Insight Maker. So insightmaker.com, and they have hundreds of models, including many health-related models. So if we go look, particularly say at healthcare, there's quite a few models here. It supports both ABM and system dynamics, although my sense is the ABM is not nearly as well fleshed out as in any of these other packages. It is a highly visual interface. It supports kind of a rich user interface to models that is akin to storytelling, sort of playing out a model over time and playing out causal loop diagrams and other similar things. I'm not clear how scalable it is, and there's fewer supporting external tools that I'm aware of to get the data into a statistical analysis package compared to ModGen, AnyLogo, Recast, and probably also NetLogo. It's coming along. The developer, Scott Fort Monroe, is at Google, and he's doing this as kind of a side project at Google, and is very interested in sort of having it shaped, and I'm peripherally involved in sort of helping to give a little bit of advice. We are developing our own system that we see as sort of dealing, as I say, as a computer scientist and one with a background in language design, I find it, I'm absolutely shocked by the current state of sort of practice and what we force modelers to go through and what we force modeling teams to go through. It's completely shameful. And I think we can do so much better. We know how to do better, and it's just a matter of making it happen. And fortunately, I have a grant to do that from sort of the equivalent of NSF in Canada. So conferences. I go to various conferences. I haven't found a real home really well. I like the Winter Simulation Conference, but it's dominated, it mostly has people from discrete event modeling background, which is another type of modeling for characterizing particularly sort of workflow, processes with very defined workflow and resource constraints and where you're very interested in delays and resource bottlenecks, etc. I will say, it was complete. I don't know why. I don't have a good explanation why, but the NIH seems to always have turned a blind eye to discrete event simulation. Let me say this, because I think I owe it to them. They've been a community that's been around since the late 1960s. They do very, very defined types of models. It's more constrained than SD and ABM in its application. Maybe that's why the NIH hasn't really clued into it. But there are more discrete event simulation models in health than have been produced by ABM and SD combined by many times over. Discrete event simulation is extremely established in healthcare delivery. It's extremely established for characterizing in a very defined way progress through these defined workflows in a resource-constrained setting. And you'll find it very widely used in hospital settings and other settings associated with healthcare delivery. We use it a lot with hybrid models. We have models where agents go to clinics and the clinic flow or the flow in the hospital is defined by discrete event simulation, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful stuff because you can look at the impact on population health of constraints, bottlenecks in the healthcare setting, and the impact of population health concerns on the dynamics within healthcare. WinterSim has quite a few agent-based papers and some system dynamics papers as well. It's a pretty open-minded conference. It's a big conference. It's 800 plus people, not huge by biology standards or what have you, but big. It's every year. There's actually a summer simulation conference, but the winter one seems to me it's bigger. They have it's a full paper conference, rigorous review standards, and good material gets presented there, thoughtful folks. I'm closely associated with SBP, the Social Computing Behavioral Cultural Modeling and Prediction. We have quite a few agent-based papers that appear there. A smaller conference, 100 to 200 people, a lot of social scientists there now, and a lot of combinations with big data. System Dynamics Society has its own conference, great for SD, a bit clubby. Agent-based modeling is notable but not prominent, I'd say, within it, and it's not something you want to go to very specifically to get agent-based exposure, but it does have a home for it. I publish also in this ICAI, International Conference on Health Informatics, but that's probably of less interest.
One thing to emphasize,
Yeah.
though, is that Nate is putting this up here to highlight specialty conferences in these areas, but
Yeah.
nowadays
That's
there's
right.
usually, for example, in the Population Association,
Oh, yeah.
which is where I go, there's always an ABM session. The Demography Conference, Population Association of America, I'm sure it's true. I know the Gerontology
Yeah.
Conference has, so you can put this stuff wherever.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're looking for conferences where the emphasis might be more on the modeling itself rather than substance, these are.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, we publish modeling work in APHA conferences annually, or SER, Society for Epidemiological Research. I mean, I'm just so grateful for you pointing that out, because these are specialty conferences. These are, a lot of people here are experts in the methodologies, but these days, in terms of publishing in health domain conferences, the door's wide open. There's just a lot of interest in it. And the bigger concern on my part is no longer so much resistance as the risk that bad quality work will get sort of papered over as if it's a big contribution, where really they haven't done the sweating the details that they really do need to. And that is, I think, a real risk. Books, this is Grimm, Railsback and Graham, which describes the ODD in quite some detail. Josh Epstein's Computational Social Science has a lot of classic papers in it, and some thoughtful work on sort of generative modeling. I should really put up here, I'll add this one.
Add the Rand and Walensky, we should put that
you
up
bet.
last night. Yeah, 2016, I think.
Yep. So, give me a second. Rand and Walensky. Yeah. So, I interacted with the predecessor Star Logo to NetLogo back in 1990 when I was doing my first agent-based modeling. And it's been fascinating to see where it's gone. They've made a lot of good decisions. They've made
Right.
also
it's
some
Introduction to Agent-Based Modeling
Good.
out of MIT Press.
good. That's great.
And they have a website with like a zillion example models that are useful.
Right.
Oh, 2015.
2015. Okay.
Nate, we should probably.
Yep. Yeah. We're at 10:30, so we should get on to the next topic. Let's. We should take a break, right? First.
Let's do the website.
Okay. Okay. Let's. Whoa. Okay. Sorry. Fine. That will do. Okay. And again, I'll go post these here. System Dynamics. This Hoffman book is the one I mentioned yesterday. Strongly recommended for qualitative system dynamics. Sturman's Business Dynamics has quite a bit of model validation discussion. Brenda, if you were interested. Or no, sorry, it wasn't Brenda. But there was also some discussion on, there's some literature I can bring to bear on that. And then his John Moorcroft book is I'm told, quite good. I've never gone into it in great detail. Okay, community support. I find the Systems Wiki and Insight Maker thoughtful in terms of community interaction and posting opportunities and contribution. But what we really wanted to feature here was an early glimpse at this site we've been working on. And we'd like to do it both to give you a sense of where we're going with this. This is work that really came out of my boot camps in a largely defined fashion, but which has really gotten refined, I think, in some nice ways in the past year or so. Through the contributions of this course related funding, and through contributions from Elizabeth and Ross. It's a site aimed at community building, community support, sharing materials, finding partners, etc.